Welcome to a brand new episode of Seize the Moment podcast. And today we have a very special guest. We have Lybi Ma. She's the executive editor of Psychology Today. In addition to producing the print magazine, she also guides its website and blog platform, which hosts more than 900 authors, academic researchers, and journalists. She edited a Psychology Today books series covering topics such as anger, food addiction, and bipolar disorder. And her new book, available now, is called How to Be Less Miserable: End the Negative Mind Loops and Find Joy. Olivia, it's such a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I want to say before we begin that Libby is one of my wonderful editors of Psychology Today, so I'm super grateful for her being on. So in her book, she said, we can, or she wrote, we can tap into the cognitive skills that will help move us beyond the negativity that holds us back. We want a happy life, and we pursue this with a lot of effort, yet we fixate on what is bleak and terrible. This compulsion toward a negative mindset can be perpetual, and it takes a toll on our mental and physical well-being. A person's criticisms, gloomy perspectives, and general pessimism wire the brain to promote feelings of anger and anxiety, among other difficult mental states. The stress of negativity is also detrimental to physical health. It raises blood pressure, weakens the immune system, and decreases the capacity to combat inflammation and illness. However, we can move away from this misery by being aware of and regulating our emotions, hard ones like fear, jealousy, disappointment, and others. This healthy management helps us deal with life's ambiguities, combat all or nothing thinking, do away with hard feelings like shame and guilt, and defy self sabotage to live free of distress. So, wow. Okay, a lot of kind of what I do, obviously, for a living, which I really love. But then also, what I love about it is that you really get to the nut of the problem, which I really, really appreciate because, like, for me, who constantly looks for like sources and root causes, this was incredibly up my alley, especially as a CBT practitioner. So, the first question that we would have for you is I would ask, in terms of sort of like kind of core issues that come up with let's say with people's struggles, with people's kind of like, let's say with their symptomology, their kind of clinical presentations, what would those be, right? What do you find most people kind of getting trapped in, right? Sort of what are, sort of cyclical issues?
Well, one thing is we have a lot of thoughts, and a lot of times they're not good.
Yeah.
And the self-talk becomes incessant. And I find that a lot of them are lies. Oh, you're a loser. Yeah, I don't know. That date is not going to call me back. Uh, you're a loser, Libby. That sort of thing. It just is. It's incessant, and it can go round and round and round. I actually don't do it anymore.
Mm,
Oh, I have a thought. That's nice. I'm going to continue with my day. It doesn't do me any good. I I am very good at it now.
mm,
I used to in my youth, had a hard time with things, you know. Well, why do I have to be divorced? I didn't ask for this divorce.
mm,
Uh,
Mm,
oh, I'm a loser. Okay, that's why. It just goes on and on and on, and
mm,
and it went in around in my head for, I would say, years. So I stopped that, and I think most of us can do that. And the
mm,
one big thing to do is to be aware that you're doing it and labeling the thought.
mm,
Right now, I'm feeling anger about XYZ that happens. And, you can just label it and look at it and not be in it because we want to roll around in it and wallow in the misery. We just love to be in there and think about these things over and over. Yeah, it's just really not worth it.
mm,
no, absolutely. I could totally relate to that. And especially in my late teens and early 20s, I really was a super neurotic person. Like I would be talking to myself all the time, having these narratives, like what do these people think of me? How am I being perceived? Am I dumb?
Oh, yeah.
Just yeah, and it wasn't until so the path that I sort of had to kind of become a little more cognizant of my thoughts and kind of label what's going on. So I had read a book earlier in my 20s. It's called The Power of Now. by Eckhart Tolle. It's essentially kind of labeled the inner self-talk, the inner critic as, quote unquote, the ego, like their working definition of it.
Hmm.
And I thought it was very fascinating because the very moment that I kind of started to sort of disidentify from that
That's right.
automatic thought loop, I was like, oh, okay, wow, I feel some space from it. So of course, it's sort of a different kind of a path, to maybe seeing things that way. But yeah, the moment I had a label for what's going on internally, that was already a paradigm shift. Like other people, before, actually getting into, before they read your book, let's say, it would be an incredible paradigm shift to actually be able to stop and think about what are you thinking, or observe what you're thinking.
Right.
Uh, Prior to that, they're just stuck in that automaticity and just not even aware of what's going on. So I don't know. I just love what your book is about as far as that goes. So
Oh, good. I'm glad that you don't suffer as much anymore.
not as much, here and there, I might get, it happens, right? You're not always in the moment, right? You could, kind of vacillate between these different, sort of uh, states, if you will. But yeah, yeah. More often than not, I'm in a better place than I used to be, just like you, as far as that goes. Yeah, yeah,
Age helps.
that's true. That's
And
true.
so Libby, what I love again going back to kind of sources and sort of root causes is that which is, kind of funny because in some ways I'm sort of against the notion, but in this particular case I like it because it's so multifaceted. So you take an evolutionary framework, which I think is incredibly important. So the way you kind of understand it, and what I love about it also is that it's non-shaming. The way that you understand it is a lot of these let's say patterns or cycles that we get into, like these are all pretty normal, right? These are sort of things that were sort of wired into us and, epigenetically so probably speaking too, over generations. So can you get into that, right? So some of the evolutionary sort of frameworks of it, and also kind of like why? Why would a person need to get into sort of a negative spin or a negative bias? Why would a person have, let's say, or engage in black and white thinking and catastrophize and all of these other distortions? Like, why do we do that naturally?
Well, ancient man had to be aware of danger. So it's already a alertness
Hmm.
for problems. They gonna have to look around to see if there's a predator. They have to be careful. And the human body and the brain hasn't changed that much, and we have carried this with us. So you're walking along and you see a nice person, that's nice. And that's good. You keep walking and you see someone who looked shady, you want to stop and pay attention and be alert. Uh, am I in danger? Is
Hmm.
that person going to do something to me? And it can happen in everyday life in the workplace. Oh, wow, is this coworker you know, someone I should be careful about because it looks as if they might be doing some things that are manipulative and you
Mm,
want to be alert. You just we we we're built that way. We can't help it. And we also have a negative bias, and the brain has evolved with this bias. So this mindset, as you say, we are stuck in distorted thinking, and we have um, this lasting impression of a negative event or thing. Your mind goes back, oh, why did I say that stupid thing?
mm,
I look like a fool. And it happened weeks ago, and you're still rolling around in this I look like a fool type thought. And it also, this bias ensures that we um, hold on to the insults and grievances that we hear. And we think, oh my gosh, this person thinks I'm stupid, or they rebuffed me, or I don't know, whatever thing that's going on. And we want to hold on to it. So these negative thoughts fill the mind, and they're quite irrational.
Mm-hmm.
They We do a lot of things in the brain that are negative, like jump to conclusions, fortune tell. Oh, I know that person's not going to call me back because I'm a
Mm,
loser. Mind read. I know that you're thinking about me and it has to be bad. All or nothing. I'm not going to be happy forever. And it's just goes on and on and on in your head. It can't help it.
right.
I don't know if I answered the
Yeah,
question.
well, and the way you frame it is essentially that the brain is kind of created or was created to kind of survive, not necessarily be happy. It's sort of like happiness is secondary, whatever that is. And then fundamentally, what you argue is that we kind of chase or try to chase happiness, and ultimately, it's sort of these kind of distortions and sort of, I guess, our survival techniques. They essentially prevent us from having it or from attaining it.
That's right. Yeah. That I and you probably read in the book, I grew up in a Hui
Mm,
Chinese household,
Mm-hmm.
and we did not run around wondering about happiness.
mm,
Nobody had time to think about that anyway.
mm,
We were immigrants, and we have to survive. And on top of that, being Hui, it's just happiness is not really. I think that's a more of a Western construct. I'm
mm,
going to be
Mm-hmm.
happy. I have to be happy. I'm going to do these bucket list items, and I'm going to be happy forever. Well, no, I don't think so. I
mm,
don't think it works that way.
mm,
Yeah, you folks know quite a bit, I'm sure, about the set level of happiness. For example, I had three weddings. Kids got married,
mm,
Mm-hmm.
and in 13 months, and happy, 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 so happy, and this and that, and love these, you know, women who married into the family. And my son is his wife is beautiful, and I adore her. Yeah, all of it. It's wonderful. But you're in this elated happiness level, and you but you come down to where you normally are. It's a
mm,
set level. And that happens for the crabby person. I'm not crabby. I'm not you know, super happy anyway, but I'm
mm,
just in the middle, and you just go back to where you are.
mm,
That's just the way it is. It's a hedonic adaptation that we can't shake off. I mean, we can change certain things. We have to live right to move that set level up a little.
mm,
All the self-care items that we need to cross off. You guys look like you work out and you're fit. That's good.
mm, mm,
Thank you.
Right? Right?
mm,
You
Yeah.
have to do that. You have to sleep right. You have to eat right. Don't eat junk food. Stay away from processed food. Make sure that you have friends, that you're connected, that you talk
mm.
to people. We're social. We have to do all those things, and then there's more we can do. We can talk about that later, but we can change our set level.
Yeah, what I love so much, just one thing. So what I love so much is that you take it from passivity to activity. So I can tell you from my personal experiences with depression, which I'm assuming is pretty ubiquitous, there's this sense of like nothing makes me happy. I used to say that all the time, and I think periodically I probably do. It's like, but and that's okay, right? One could argue now. Well, at least I could argue that now. Is that like sometimes nothing it does make you happy, and it's okay because again, that's sort of how life is. I mean, it's not going to be a series of highs. So with that being said, what I love so much is that you take it and you make it practical. And for you, happiness is not so much a destination, which again I very much appreciate, but happiness is more so like an activity, and it's a repetitive activity. So if one were to ask you, how does one cultivate happiness? What would you say to them?
Well, I don't even, I'm sorry, I don't, like I said, I'm Hui.
Mm-hmm.
The word happiness is kind of funny. I don't find that to be that practical.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly not my goal
Mm-hmm. So
at
contentment?
all. Sorry?
Contentment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. you know, when you're a kid and you're walking around and you've got this face on, and my dad would never say, "Oh, you're not happy today." He would just
Mm,
say, "Oh, you have a face in mourning, like you're
mm,
attending a funeral." Then he'd sit there with his tea and just smirk. And it was not about happiness. It was about just being here. And okay, I have an unhappy, sad moment right now. I'm gonna feel it, and that's good.
mm,
Good. This is an uncomfortable thing that I'm going through, and I'm just gonna feel it and not be. You can feel it and not be so attached to it. You can do it with some detachment, I believe.
mm,
Yeah, something I find I was going to ask this earlier, but now I already sort of have the answer to this question. I was going to ask, what inspired you to kind of frame the book around being, less miserable versus more happy? And then now I'm actually, yeah, I'm getting it, right? We're wired to essentially be, well, not necessarily be miserable, but because
Yes.
we're looking for those threats all the time,
yeah.
narrowing our focus on problems, that sort of thing, getting caught in thought loops, rumination, such. Um, Having techniques to kind of more practically maybe alleviate the unnecessary amount that we do these things in modern life when, we're not really presented with these life-threatening
Mm,
threats. I mean, depends on what part of the world you're in currently, but if you're living somewhere like, in the Catskills or New York City or Los Angeles or something like that, you may not encounter those real life-threatening threats, day to day. And so we kind of deal more with, as you say in the book, more kind of psychological threats,
Yes.
right? And then treat them as these big, sort of heavy things that don't necessarily have to.
mm,
Yeah,
Yeah, we put more weight on it than we
yeah,
need to, I believe. And
yeah.
and the topic of emotions is quite interesting. Yeah, wonderful research uh, on that. We don't like a lot of the emotions that we have. We're
mm,
just like, oh no, I don't want to feel that.
mm,
But my parents always said, well, you fine, just you got to feel it. it. That's all there is to it. And I'm not talking about clinical depression. That's difficult, and you need help, and you
mm,
may need medication. It depends on the person.
mm,
But yet the idea of negating half the feelings that we have, or emotions that we have, is probably not a good idea.
mm,
And what does that actually do in your brain in terms of like, does it reinforce fear or kind of resistance every time you're kind of avoidant to, like, for example, you have some sort of emotion, but instead you're gonna maybe drink or,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
or just
numbing
avoid it.
yourself is great.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah. So what does that actually do to you every time that you do kind of avoid the emotion that, that you probably should be confronting?
mm,
Like
Well,
yeah.
yeah, you bring up numbing.
Yeah.
That's not dealing with things. That's great.
mm,
Now we have um people are get disappointed quite a bit about life,
Right.
life's doesn't meet your expectations. So
mm,
we have a low frustration tolerance, and half the time we end up numbing or self-sabotaging. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go eat that cake. That'll make me feel better.
mm.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, actually, the cake is over very quickly, and you're going to go back to how you were feeling.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
might as well, you know, have a look at it. I mean,
Hmm.
you can have a look at it without fighting with it, I think.
Mm,
You
And
can, yeah, you can do that. So there's great work coming out of University of Michigan,
Mhm.
and the idea of detachment from or just observing what you are feeling. And observing it is not numbing it. You can
Mm,
you can have a look and also perhaps speak to yourself in the third person because that helps actually because you are really distancing what it is you're going through
Mm.
mm,
and oh, Libby's having a bad day today.
mm,
It's going to step back and watch from over here and observe it.
mm,
It's Buddhist, I think. I feel that it's very Buddhist.
mm.
Mm.
And can you get into some of the research? So what happens to our emotions essentially when we do either suppress, deny, or avoid them?
Oh, well, like as we are speaking, we want to sabotage ourselves. We want to beat ourselves up,
Mm,
and we don't want to show ourselves any self-compassion.
mm,
So it's just wallow around in this negative mindset and keep and continue.
mm.
I don't know if I answered the question.
Because yeah, in your book you write that essentially emotions, the negative ones, get amplified, right? So the more anxious
Yeah.
or the more sort of you avoid your anxiety, essentially, not only is it kind of sustained or is it maintained, but fundamentally it's even amplified. So you start to fear the things even more the more you avoid them.
Oh, right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It does get amplified.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh,
Repressing doesn't do anything. It always comes back to you and maybe with more power.
Mm. Yeah, and can you talk about some of the research around that? I'm just super curious.
Well, so this goes way back to psychoanalysis.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Freud, I think people like to beat up on Freud a bit, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of not right. I mean, he had a lot of good ideas,
Yep.
mm,
but we do a lot of things. We do a lot of things, so we can um, not deal
Mm-hmm.
with with things. We become defensive, use our defense mechanisms. I mean, a little bit of that is okay. A little bit of compartmentalizing is great, but
Mm.
doing it too much it's it's not useful. It's
Yeah.
not yeah, it's that golden mean that you want to hit. Moderation. You're going to feel sadness, great. You're in that middle zone and just feel it. And or if you're angry, you can just be in the middle
Mm-hmm.
and not you know be so impulsive that you're going to flash out on everybody. That's not going to help anything. You'll be just nobody's going to pay attention to you. They're just going to avoid you.
Mm.
Or it could go the other way. But you you take the anger and you keep it inside and
Mm.
repress it. It just doesn't help either. So I think Freud did a lot of good things for psychology,
Well,
definitely.
and there was such a great point. There was a really great point that you made. You essentially said that, and this to me was really fascinating. And I'm not sure sort of how common it's sort of or commonly known or understood it is. So you made the point essentially saying that the signal that you send to your brain when you repress, you kind of I wouldn't say repress. I mean, although there's some truth to that too. But like let's say when you suppress emotion, when you avoid an emotion, the message that you're sending to your brain is this is actually really bad. So whatever it is, right? So whatever the fear is, you're telling your brain, and it becomes
right.
kind of a cycle or a loop. You're telling your brain, hey, this is really bad, so you should be afraid of it, and then therefore you become even more afraid of it. So what
Right,
happened? Right, right, right. And I
right,
thought to
right.
me that was such an important scientific and neuroscientific point, is because a lot of times when we think we suppress, we just think like, who cares? We're putting it away, and then we're just going to live our lives. But we don't see that behind the scenes, there's a lot of a lot of things going on, or a lot
Hmm.
of sort of let's say cognitive, what's the word? Sort of cognitions, I guess, for lack of a better term. There's a lot of thinking behind your thinking. And that is very Freudian, right? There's a lot of sort of bubbling in the unconscious. And I really love that idea.
Yeah, yeah. But a lot of the um, cognitive activity happening when this is going on is it's distorted,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't look at anything with reality in mind.
Mm,
It's just you just blow everything out of proportion. It's just that's just the way the mind makes it worse
mm,
than it actually is. It
Mhm.
makes and you can take an event that happened. Um, you feel like you made a fool out of yourself at a party or whatever, and you realize days later that nobody noticed anything because they
mm-hmm.
were probably worried about themselves
Right.
Mm-hmm.
looking
Yeah.
like fools.
I have a interesting question in regards to rumination. So, rumination feels like problem solving, right? But it's not, right? And I guess why do our brains kind of trick us into thinking rumination is productive?
Well, well, first of all, the rumination there it's related to our default mode network,
Mhm.
and that is you know been studied over and over, but your brain does a funny thing. You're driving down the road,
Mhm.
and when you're near your home, everything turns off and you start ruminating and you just
Mm-hmm.
drive. You just, you just drive and you get to your house.
Mhm.
And well, the brain is doing this thing, the default mode.
Mm,
And these interconnected brain regions just go round and round and round. And we do it when we're cleaning the house, sweeping the floor, the mind just goes on.
mm,
So it has this tendency anyway. It's built to
Mhm.
do that. And when you are stuck on a thought, well, there it goes round and round, and you ruminate about that thing that happened. Goes round and round and round, and that your brain is built to do it.
Mhm.
mm,
It's kind of hard to fight with something that is natural.
Mhm. If we did have to, let's say, you catch yourself ruminating, or rather, sorry, let me reframe this. Um, if someone is a consistent ruminator, what's maybe something they can do to kind of reduce,
or
the
redirect, yeah.
redirect
Mm-hmm. The
maybe either
thoughts.
their thoughts or reduce the amount they ruminate? Yeah.
So there's been quite a bit of work done on labeling.
Mm,
Lab when you start to think something, okay, I'm feeling very distressed. What
Mhm.
is this? And you can look at it and label what it is you're actually feeling and go over it a little bit. Not
mm,
ruminate, but just look at it and
mm-hmm.
and what is that about? What is the root cause of this? What is it?
Mm,
Why do I feel angry about something that someone said? Blah blah blah.
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe I fear that this person is going to leave me.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it might be. You have to take a look and see and label it. What am I feeling? And what is the cause? What's at the root? And have a look
mm.
at it. But
Yeah.
not sit there, as I said, not sit there and wallow in it. Just have a look.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what I love so much is, again, going back to the structure of the mind or the brain, is that you kind of focus on essentially how it affects the way we interpret the world. So, a lot of us, I think it's pretty easy to sort of tell yourself that you think and see things objectively. But oftentimes, obviously, because our brains are, for the most part, survival mechanisms, which is, to be fair, not to reduce it just to that, but it's a pretty significant component. And because our minds are survival mechanisms, it essentially infects, I would actually use that word and I would emphasize it, infects our interpretations. So I love that you focus on that because oftentimes, and this happens a lot in treatment, where people come in and they tell you about these narratives, right? And they tell you, well, oh no, I'm sure, right? I'm sure that that's the truth. And it's kind of hard to challenge them. I mean, it's also hard to challenge them because you're not really in their lives. But fundamentally, the idea is there's no way I'm wrong, right? Why would it's like there's no kind of possible way that there's any sort of bias involved. And so a lot of times, especially with depression, people will say something which is very Schopenhauer-esque, somebody we spoke about last week on the show. But the idea is that sort of my pessimism is an accurate representation of the world. So, Libby, you argue that a lot of times that's actually not the case. So, can we get into that? How does the brain actually shape in a kind of overly negative view of the world and an overly negative view of ourselves and our lives?
Well, as we mentioned, the brain wants to gravitate to to the negative just
Yep.
because we're built that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and these thoughts that we have are very irrational. And one person who did a lot of work, the late Albert Ellis, which I'm sure
Yep.
you
Yeah.
you know all about him, and
REBT. Mm-hmm.
he's quite amazing researcher who just we are trying to fight thoughts that are set,
Mhm.
must have. This has to be this way. Why is it not? It should be this way,
Mm,
or it ought to have been. And why didn't I get that job promotion? It should have been like this, or whatever. Why isn't this person calling me back?
mm,
It must be. So that you get stuck in these very, very, you know, irrational ways of thinking, and half the time, you're thinking, well, this person didn't call me back and my life is going to be terrible forever because I can't live without them. Well, you know
mm,
what? You can.
mm-hmm,
You can probably, if it's not working out and it's not working out, you probably be okay.
mm-hmm.
Probably
Yeah,
be fine.
yeah, and you also made the point, which another really great point that I love, is that a lot of times the catastrophizing sort of fuels our sense, and it's bidirectional. So it fuels our sense that we don't believe, right, that we can't, let's say, handle whatever happens, and then so we try to prevent it, right? So in a way that sort of kind of exaggerates whatever the problem is, and then when we exaggerate whatever the problem is, it further makes us feel like, oh my God, we definitely can't deal with it now.
And could I just tag
Yeah,
that super
go.
quick?
Hmm.
So I, here's the funny thing. In terms of, so I get, I think I understand what's wrong about catastrophizing, right? You
Mm.
default to the worst case sort of situation. But I guess I don't want to take away too much of
No,
what you're
sure.
saying, but
Yeah, yeah.
what is the difference between catastrophizing and like healthy caution? Because I would argue
Mm,
that trying to I mean, I get that there's a narrowing that occurs by concentrating on the worst case scenario to the absence of all other possibilities. So I may be answering my own question wrong.
yeah.
Okay.
However,
I think you
however,
are.
Alan's figured it out.
but I mean, I would argue there is kind of a use to kind of being able to anticipate how you would deal with the worst possible scenario in order to be quote unquote safe, even
Mm.
though I, there's pros and cons, I guess, to how I'm framing it. But I don't know. What do you think about that? Yeah.
Well, I want to go back to the golden mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
you have to be cautious about things, but
Yeah.
does it have to be the world's going to light on fire? I don't
Right.
think so.
Mm.
Are you going to be so pie in the sky that you're going to be find harm, or I don't know, and walk into something that is dangerous? I
Mm.
don't think so.
Mhm.
Mm.
That that golden mean is very nice to stay in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we have to look at life with moderation.
Yeah, and one could even also argue that if we're kind of if we're looking at worst case scenario, so the idea there is that like you don't take it too seriously, right? So it's okay to look at it. However, you don't have to tell yourself that it's going to happen. But here's the other argument. So somebody would say on the other end, they would say something like, "Well, I can't really motivate myself to look at it unless I think there's a strong probability of it happening," right? So this is what's called defensive pessimism. The idea is kind of like I build it up in my mind and tell myself, "Oh my God, I'm going to this presentation is going to go terribly," right? So then it motivates me to act in a sort of in a better way, right? However, I actually feel like what happens, and Libby definitely talks about this in her book, what happens is it becomes self-sabotage, right?
Right.
So then anxiety goes through the roof, fear obviously goes through the roof. There's a sense of sort of a need or a kind of a drive to now avoid. And fundamentally, what happens is the anxiety that you think is supposed to fuel you ends up kind of stifling and suffocate you. So, Libby, actually, can you get into that? So, can we talk about some of the things that you've learned about how anxiety affects people?
Anxiety is an interesting, I mean, people, it's interesting because so many people suffer from it.
Mm-hmm.
And also anxiety and depression kind of sometimes go together, as you well know.
Yep.
Um, but but again, a little bit of anxiety is very good.
Mm-hmm.
It motivates us to be alert and okay, I'm a little nervous about this thing that's going to happen, but I'm alert and I'm going to do my best.
Hmm.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go the other way and let the anxiety take over. Well, you're going to be flooded with cortisol in your brain. You're not going to even think right. You can't see anything when you're
Yep.
at that level of anxiety. And also it brings on terrible physical problems because the body becomes inflamed
Hmm.
and the stress level goes up and you can't fight infection and you catch the cold more.
Mm-hmm.
And all these things happen just because you are letting your anxiety take over that fear of whatever it is. But again, I want to say that a little bit of anxiety is good. It keeps
Mm-hmm.
you on your toes.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I
So
don't know. Again,
the
I'm asking if that answers the question, but
Well, I feel like it does, right? So
Yeah.
because what it is that with worst case scenario thinking, again, so just kind of to be really clear about it, it's just that when people catastrophize, it's sort of like is there's this implicit belief. So like if you talk to a patient about why they catastrophize and like let's say they're thoughtful about it, they would say something like, well, because it kind of prepares me, right? So I feel like I kind of have to do it. So a lot of times it's obviously automatic. So there's it's sort of it's what's the word? It's sort of not ambiguous, but it's like there's an ambivalence to it in some ways, right? So on the one hand, that's actually a great term I think for it. On the one hand, there's the sense that like, okay, I kind of hate that I do this automatically, but on the other hand, there's a sense of like, but how do I kind of function otherwise? So the problem with catastrophizing is the sort of underlying the sort of process is the belief that I have to do this because it's the best way for me to survive, right? So there's a sense of it's better to be safe than sorry, which also Libby talks about in the book. The problem with better to be safe than sorry is unfortunately anxiety is not a victimless crime, right? So
Right.
if you're doing this in the short term, maybe not the worst thing in the world, but the problem is when it automates, as you know, because you said it, when it automates, it becomes habitual, and then when it becomes habitual, it crystallizes, and it becomes crystallized. Unfortunately, now you're struggling with all these issues that we talked about. So
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, okay. So now let's try to get into some of the practical stuff because this is the stuff that I feel like would really benefit our audience. So Libby, you actually start out the process with mindfulness. So can we talk about that and why that's an initial first step?
well, I don't think that a lot of people, um, actually look outside and look at the tree,
Mm,
right?
Yeah.
And you just heading to work, you don't notice the bird flying. It might be a very spectacular bird that is very rare.
mm,
And you just don't notice these things, or you don't notice the taste of the apple. You're just wolfing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's n not living. You have to savor life. You have to enjoy it
Mm-hmm.
and be in your body and feel it. That
Mm,
that's that's um that's Buddhism 101, I guess.
yep.
Yeah. Being mindful of what you're doing. Because if you're not being mindful, then you're worried about what's going to happen, or you're stressing over what happened. And you're
Mm,
always looking forward or looking backward and not being right here at this
I,
moment.
I like that because it's the funny thing is that especially when you mention looking at a tree or a bird or savoring the apple. Yeah, yeah, I am guilty of this. I will look at a tree, right? And just kind of, I guess, if I had to explain what's going on in my mind, I'd be like, oh, okay, oh, tree. But I'm not really looking at it. I have a tree actually
mm,
outside over here. And now that I'm looking more at it, even though we can't see this on camera,
mm,
I see all the different branches, leaves changing colors. You kind of appreciate the size of the tree, kind of take in all the, minute details as far as that goes. But you're right. Yeah, if I'm just walking by, yeah, maybe I'm not actually, taking that into consideration. Or if I'm looking at Leon, maybe in my mind what's going on is, oh, okay, Leon, I know just Leon, the name Leon
mm,
label,
mhm.
person here, name Leon, and then interact with every sentence and all of that. But there's a whole life's worth of experience here. There's somebody who's a living, breathing human being who has a history, has emotions, cares about, there's things he cares about, things that he likes, dislikes, all of that. And then I guess if I was really taking in the person, you would experience them completely different, right? As
Mhm.
opposed to okay, person, name, react to sentence or body language, and
Yeah.
how does this relate to me? Which
Or
could be, yeah,
or even just get stuck in your ruminations, meaning like you have
sure.
like a cursory view of it, and then you're like, okay, whatever, now back to my own thoughts.
Yeah,
Right.
Right, which is
right.
what often happens. So would you say, Libby, I'm just curious in terms of, because I don't remember exactly this coming up in the book, but would you say that mindfulness also helps us, or maybe it did. So would you say that mindfulness helps us with relationships because we are getting out of that ruminative spiral, like focusing on the things and the people outside of ourselves?
Yeah, no, we are so focused on ourselves in what happened back there and what's going to happen that we're not being mindful with the person sitting next to you. And there is no connection, and we need to connect. Connection is one of the most important things. If we're not connecting and being mindful with that person, um, oh, we don't bother having a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
have to connect. And they've done many studies on connecting. And the one that I like to mention the most is the Grant study. And they started it almost 100 years ago. And they've been following these generations of these people. And what is the most important thing is connecting,
Yep.
connecting. You need people. And if you're not mindful with that person next to you, then, well, I don't know. I don't know what kind of relationship that is. You're right.
And I should ask this. I should have asked this actually prior to your question, but yeah, how do our early attachment patterns
Mm.
shape the misery that we feel in adulthood relationships?
Well, yeah, attachment patterns. I mean, they don't necessarily latch on and follow you. If you meet somebody who had a horrible childhood, I
Mm,
don't know what it was, they were
Mm.
abused or whatever. It's interesting to see that some people are quite healthy
Mm.
and have gotten through it. So I don't think that it has to follow you forever.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly you probably need to deal with it, and would imagine that some people are more um, thick-skinned, perhaps, and they're
Right.
gonna like, okay, well, these horrible things happened to me,
Mm,
and but I'm going to live my life and show grace to myself, and
Mm,
also the people who were not good to me. Sh Show grace to and be forgiving, and you
mm,
can probably move forward with your life. So
absolutely.
the attachment is quite a tricky thing.
mm.
It just doesn't have to be
Yeah.
written in stone.
True.
Right, which is a wonderful thing. And going back to those narratives that may form in attachment, or in early attachments rather. So how would somebody then go about kind of reshaping them, right? So let's say we started out with mindfulness, and then, let's say a person is observing these stories and observing the self-talk. But let's say on the other end, they want to say to themselves, or they ask, okay, but what do like I understand that I could kind of distance myself from it, but what else am I supposed to do with it? Because it's still pretty hard to tolerate. Like, where does sort of compassion play in? Or how does it play in?
I guess, well, let's talk about forgiveness
Mm,
Hmm.
because that is quite filled with compassion. S- I'm going to use an example here. So I am
mm,
divorced, and the example that I will give you is I would not speak to my ex-husband in the beginning.
mm,
What, I just not going to talk to you. You were horrible,
Hmm.
mm, mm,
and you left me. But
mm, mm,
and that didn't last a whole. It didn't last long. It wasn't working. Um, you know, uh, rolling around in my grievances. It just wasn't helping. I had
mm,
no compassion toward him, and certainly no compassion toward myself. And uh, I just wasn't getting anywhere. And I
mm,
think that I have two kids.
Yeah. Right.
Um, I don't think they were benefiting
mm,
from this negativity. And so, I started to try bite my bottom lip and
Hmm.
and start to forgive.
mm,
Took a really, really long time. And we've been divorced for decades now. Kids were very young and they're grown. And it's like a muscle. You got to keep
mm,
trying. Yeah, well, okay, I didn't do a good job there. But I'm going to keep trying to show grace. And when I do it, show it toward him, well, then I feel better about myself and show it toward myself. Give myself grace.
mm,
So it kind of worked both ways.
mm,
And and it worked. It took a while.
Hmm.
And we gotten to the point, and it's been decades now that we've been divorced, and I am living in his house.
mm,
This is his house he built,
mm.
and and I'm
Wow.
living here with my husband. I got
Well, I
remarried.
I have to ask, wait, how did that process sort of happen, and how were the feelings and the entanglements and whatnot? How was that sort of addressed?
How were the feelings addressed?
Yeah. Sort of maybe the resentments, maybe the envy or jealousy that may play in if it did.
Um, well, yeah, I hung on to that as long as I could, right?
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
felt good.
Yep.
It felt good to be vengeful, or in my mind
Mm-hmm.
at least, right?
Right, right.
It's it felt nice to like hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
I had my grievances and I was going to just be angry and whatever. But
Mm.
um but when you have kids, you really see you want them to have a good life.
Hmm.
And for them to be happy, my ex had to be happy.
Wow.
So we got to do this. We got to I kept repeating that. for kids to be happy, he has to be happy.
Wow.
Why does he, if I want him to be miserable, the kids are gonna be miserable. It's just like, you know what? Compassion is, I think it's the way to go.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, definitely, totally respecting, understanding the necessity of having to do it, especially, for your kids, for your own, for your own health, right? To live with hate or just those negative emotions, it sucks, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But I guess, I guess where I'm headed with this is, although of course respecting the necessity of it, because I think that is the most, I mean, it's most obviously the most powerful force there. But out of curiosity, did also things like, I understand forgiveness is an aspect, but then was attempting to find things to be grateful for,
Oh,
Mm.
yeah.
uh, about him or the past relationship, like, did that do anything for you as far as that goes? Because
Mm.
I hear, I mean, I've had my own experiences with practicing gratitude, especially in regards to negative situations, like trying to see, what am I grateful for about this negative thing, or what did this lead to, or that sort of thing. um did that help you, or do you think that would help other people?
Oh, yeah. Gratitude. Well, they've done many studies on gratitude,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right.
Write your gratitude letter,
Mm-hmm.
put it
Mm-hmm.
in the mail, send it off.
Yep.
T tell the person that you're grateful. I mean, he he was a great dad.
Mm.
So, and is a great dad. So that's a place to start.
Mm.
What else do you need?
Mm.
What else do you need? You don't need anything more than that.
Mm.
Good dad, good.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And then so Alan, if you don't mind, so just because now I'm super curious. Well, I mean, I know the answer, but I think the audience would like to know the answer. So, how does the gratitude journal affected you?
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, every day I wrote 10 things I'm grateful for, grateful about, and why.
Mhm,
So that is already in itself kind of powerful, because you're already kind of consciously kind of putting yourself in sort of a good state during the
mhm,
time you're writing those 10 things. And also, it is taking your attention away from whatever that automaticity is of,
mm,
it could not necessarily even be ruminating thoughts or anything like that, but it could take you out of a malaise if, you know,
right.
nothing is happening, and, it helps to feel good about something.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so I did that every day. At night, I would do what's the thing I'm most grateful for about, all that. So sorry, without getting too much into it, how did it affect me?
Yep.
Yeah, I did it for a month, every single day for a month. And it's awesome. Yeah, great, as far as
Okay.
that goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, it is incredibly, highly recommended, actually. It is, it sounds like, oh, write what you're grateful about. It sounds like if somebody's hearing that for the first time, they're like, oh, come on, like,
Mhm,
all right, intellectually, I get what you're saying.
mhm,
But until you actually try it and kind of
Mm.
live it, it does something. It
Yep.
actually does something.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
that's why, right. So, and that's why I love kind of going back. Why I love what you're saying, going back to Libby's book, is essentially the core message, or one of the core messages, is fundamentally like in some ways, right, outside of obviously maybe clinical depression, or in addition to, right, because a lot of these are also obviously therapeutic techniques. So the idea is that like a lot of our sort of feeling states are pretty, let's say, for lack of a term, manageable, but also sort of within our control, right? Where we think of something like again as in a sort of pessimistic or cynical way, where we think of our lives that they're sort of buttressed around, and kind of things happen to us and that we
Right.
can't really do much about them. What happens is, according to the book and obviously various research, just in the psychotherapy sort of industry itself, what we find out is that a lot of this stuff is within our grasp. So why I specifically asked you about the gratitude journals, because I wanted you to kind of show our audience that this stuff does work. And that's what I really want to focus on in terms of Libby's book, is essentially to show people that these sort of techniques, even though they kind of seem minor in and of themselves, what happens is over time they all add up. And over time they make you feel what's called a locus of control, where it feels like, oh, a lot of this stuff I can do. I don't have to overly rely on sort of the life, and I don't overly have to kind of rely on external factors to make me happy. Where the idea is, and you also have to get better with contentment, obviously, and kind of accepting it and wanting it and pursuing it. But the idea there is that a lot of these small choices that we make, they do add up over the long run.
Yeah, and something that we touched on a little bit, but I think it's worth bringing up. So, in regards to the way our physiological habits can kind of lead to that misery, what or I guess what could we do in terms of, let's say, like for example, let's say we have a lot of the cortisol from stress and that sort of thing. Like what's things that people overlook, and what can they do to remedy those typical quote unquote mistakes people make?
Breathe.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not trying to be humorous. I'm
Hmm.
Yeah.
being honest.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You anxious about a thing happening and you're going to do terribly. What happens? You hold your breath.
Hmm. Hmm.
You hold, and what happens? Well, you get flooded
Yep.
from not breathing.
Mm.
But a simple breath changes your body, and you think about the breath that you're taking,
Mm.
and you can do that trick. They have different numbers, the 4, 7, 8, or whatever it is. Uh, Inhale
Yep.
for,
Yep.
hold it for
Four.
7.
Yeah, or four. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, whatever it is. There's different numbers that you can throw in there. But
Hmm.
taking a breath really just changes your body and it affects your mind.
Mm.
It really is connected.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well as like sleep hygiene, which you also
Oh
mentioned,
yeah,
super important.
absolutely.
Yeah, dieting, right? So, and I love that too because the idea is that it's a holistic process. If you're going to take care of your mind, you have to take care of your body. If you're going to take care of your body, you
Right.
have to take care of your mind.
And
That's right.
it's incredible, the mind body connection. Like
Yeah.
people really underestimate this particular topic in regards to how your body can affect your mind, and also kind of a feedback loop
Mm.
Hmm.
also between your then mind and body, and then becomes like a vicious cycle. But yeah, if people take this sincerely in terms of actually paying attention to your body, yeah, doing things like, yeah, diaphragmatic breathing, whatever, pranic breathing, the 4-7-4, other, as you mentioned, all the numbers.
Mhm.
Doing that, maybe physical activity of some sort, doesn't necessarily have to be strenuous, but something where you kind of get moving a bit.
Yeah.
Yes, regulating sleep, like making sure, and also making sure your circadian rhythm, like don't go to sleep at 5 a.m. and
Right.
wake up at 2
Right.
p.m. or
Right.
something like
Right.
that. That's not, even if you got the 8 hours, it's not necessarily still good for you. But
Yeah, stay on a
yeah,
clock.
Yep.
yeah,
Your body is, that's what it needs.
Yep.
Your
yeah,
body knows what it needs. So just give it what it needs.
Right.
yeah.
And
Right.
so just, as we start wrapping up, because I really, since you mentioned this, I now want to kind of touch on it at least a little bit, right? So giving the body what it needs, right? So, but a lot of times, because obviously, as you know, I write about perfectionism. A lot of times we overdo it, right? So we push our body to even beyond its limits. I was going to say to its limits, but beyond its limits because we think we have to, right? So there's again this sort of this kind of end state, this sense of happiness of like, oh, if I suffer now, later is going to be fine, right? But you would argue against that. Why?
Well, I don't, pushing yourself to the point of exhaustion in any fashion is probably, I don't know if that's going to be great for the body or the mind.
Right.
Yeah, you just
Mm.
s- stay in the middle. I don't know why we have to be crazy and extreme about anything.
Yep.
And I'm talking about mental habits, pushing your body too much. I don't know. I don't know if it's great to over exercise. I suppose you can do that, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not good for the body. And staying on the even path, be a little Buddhist, I think it's good.
I love it, man. The golden mean. I think for me that was the biggest takeaway from all this. At the end of the day, this so what real perfection is this balance, the golden mean. Okay. Okay, Alan, final questions for Libby before we wrap up.
Absolutely. Yes. If we wanted to follow you, follow your work, and of course buy the book, where may we do that?
Right. It's on the uh, major outlets, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can find the book there. I'm on the website. You might find my name attached to Leon's name
Yeah, many
because
times, many times.
so I review what he is working on. So you see me there.
Mhm.
And I also do post myself once in a while.
Yep.
And you'll find me on social media.
I love it. So
Awesome.
Libby, thank you so much for this,
Thank
man. This
This
you.
was
was this
so
was great.
excellent.
This was
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. So, everyone, as you know, you can always follow us at Seize the Moment Podcast on Facebook and on Instagram. On X, we're at Seize underscore podcast. Like, subscribe,
Hit
hit
the
the
bell
bell
on
on YouTube.
YouTube.
And again, thank you so much for watching and see you next time.